time for another episode of The Yard. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering, Timbuktu is located in the country of Mali. So now you at least you're going to learn that from being here tonight. You're hearing a bird, and we'll get into that shortly. But you know, there's not a problem with your sound system in your computer. In addition, we're broadcasting this live on our Zoom channel, as we always do. We're also being seen simultaneously on Facebook Live, on Twitter, on YouTube. And for those who may be interested or want to share, all the yards are recorded and can be seen on YouTube. If you just type in Commissary Club, you'll find all the past episodes. Soon, as we've mentioned before, we will be seen on hundreds of thousands of tablets that are inside jails and prisons from coast to coast. So our brothers and sisters who are currently incarcerated will be part of the Yard too. And I forgot to mention it to our guest earlier, but please keep in mind that, you know, if you have something that you want to share with folks who are currently incarcerated, you can do that, because I'm sure they'd love to hear whatever thoughts you have or advice or whatever else. The Yard is a production of Commissary Club, which is the first social network for the 70 million Americans with a criminal record, along with their 100 million or so friends and family members. That's about half the country's population, by the way. My name is Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, along with 70 Million Jobs, which is the national employment platform for folks with records. Normally, I have two co-hosts, but tonight I have one. One of our co-hosts, Seth Sundberg, is not with us tonight. The reason being, I think I mentioned last week that Seth recently, like a month ago, bought a home in Louisiana, and that like 3 days after buying the home, the terrible hurricane hit and he had to leave. Well, his internet just went out. So he's scrambling around to see if he can find a place to gain access to the internet, but he doesn't think it's going to happen. So we're going to miss him tonight, but Seth sends his best. But Seth is certainly well represented by our other teammate who joins us tonight, as normal. He is a rapper to the stars, well known by many celebrities, and an entrepreneur par excellence. And his name, of course, is Divine. So, hey, D, how are you?
Peace, peace. Great to be here again.
Great to have you again. And as usual, the brains of the operation, the woman who's pulling the strings to get us up and running, is the very fabulous teammate of ours, Adrian Haddon. Just as a quick update for what we've been up to, employment continues to be our work with employment continues to be very brisk. Companies, as I'm sure everybody is aware, some of them are absolutely desperate to find people to fill positions. And out of that desperation, they have no choice but to identify and pursue alternative recruiting channels, you know, that they normally wouldn't be pursuing. And, you know, certainly then the road leads to us. It's very interesting. Before the pandemic, there were a lot of people who needed jobs, and there were very few companies that would be willing to hire them. Now, there's many companies who are willing to hire them, but you know, the folks we work with, like every other worker in the United States, they're playing it kind of cool. You know, some of them apparently don't want to work. Some of them know that they're in a very competitive situation and they're demanding more money or more benefits or more whatever. So, it's kind of like the whole thing has been flipped in a very, very interesting way. So I assume things will normalize at a certain point, but it's still a little bit crazy for us. But we turn away business because we just can't possibly handle all the demand. Let's see. So back to the yard. For those of you who have not been to the yard before, let me please explain what we're trying to do here. Seth, Divine, and myself, we've all done time, and all of our guests have done time as well. And what we try to do is simulate the kind of conversations that occur on the prison yard at any prison. Once a day, the prison will generally let people out of their cells, and it's an opportunity to get some fresh air. Some people lift weights or toss around a football, and mostly people just hang out with their friends. So that's what we're here to do tonight, to hang out with our friends. And inevitably on the yard, as in life, sometimes the conversation gets emotional. Sometimes it gets a bit heated. But most of the time, there's a lot of laughter because, on the yard, you can make believe, even if it's just for that 1 hour, that you really are a human being and you're capable of actually having some pleasure in your life. Now, I want to address something else. Many of our guests have had incredibly painful lives. And that had a lot to do with the path that ended up with them getting in trouble. Before we bring up, what might very well be traumatic memories for our guests, we ask them in advance, is there anything off limits? Is there anything they prefer to avoid? And because the last thing we want to do is take advantage or make a guest feel exploited, or not be sensitive to the pain that people still feel acutely. It's not what we want to do. It's true that sometimes we'll be laughing, absolutely. But, we're never laughing at our guests, that's for sure. And probably a lot of the laughing has to do with a defense mechanism resulting from our own pain. A couple of weeks ago, Divine said something that I have to say, I repeated it so many times, but in response to why we were laughing, he said, we laugh because sometimes there are no more tears to cry. And I think that's a beautiful statement. Hearing about the amazing achievements of our guests and what they've accomplished after going through so much pain, in my opinion, gives us a chance to honor how truly exceptional they are. And hopefully someone listening who's dealing with his or her own pain, maybe that'll be a little bit inspirational and give them a reason to persevere and get them through a painful time. I can't think of a better way to honor people who have gone through it, including our guest tonight. Our guest tonight was born into a family where both of her parents were substance abusers. Her baby brother was born an addict. At age 15, she dropped out of school because she was the only one available to take care of her baby brother. She left Chicago and she ended up in Arizona, where drugs just remained around her. It's I guess a kind of a theme of her life. She started getting involved with drugs. She ended up marrying a crystal meth dealer and developed her own drug habit. She started engaging in what she called fraudulent shit to maintain her habit. She was sent to prison in 2004 with a 12-year sentence. But I'm very interested in hearing about that. Our guest, refers to that time in prison as probably what saved her life. In prison, she got her GED, and she began working at a call center in prison, eventually becoming one of the very best workers there. When she was released, it took her all of 2 years to go out and buy her own home. Now she's working at an amazing company that I think a great deal of, a company named Udacity. It's a company that helps and has helped thousands of people gain skills so they can land jobs and lead productive lives. And that's what she's doing. And she's killing it on the job, I've been told. So please, let's walk out to the yard and let me introduce you to our guest. Her name is Lisa Troutman. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, Lisa.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you. Lisa is joined. Is that a cockatoo? Is that what you have there?
I do. I have Tracy, who is an umbrella cockatoo. She's 27 years old and she's a rescue. And she's very demanding of my attention. So you might hear from her a little bit throughout the call. Apologies in advance.
There you go. See, Tracy joins us. Welcome,
Tracy
Tracy.
is not receiving a guest fee. I don't care how much Tracy asks, but it's just not going to happen. But any of that. First of all, Tracy, did I get right in the introduction? Was that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. Yep.
Okay, good. So let me ask you before we get started, why are you here? Now, we invited you, so it's not like you just barged in here.
Well, I've never had the opportunity to hang out in the yard with any men, so that's one reason.
Okay,
I think there's a compliment.
Yeah,
I know, I wasn't expecting that though, I have to say, but good.
And also, I had the opportunity to hear Divine's story at Udacity. He joined one of our sales enablement calls. It was a couple months ago, maybe, and shared his story. And, interestingly enough, there was, so many things that he said that resonated with me and that lined up and matched with my story. I mean, minus the rap, it's pretty similar. And so that prompted me to reach out to Todd, who set up that interview or that presentation from Divine. I got Divine's email address and I sent him the novel that you just read. And so we've become fast friends. So, that's, why I'm here.
Right. Divine has also been involved with Udacity. I'm sure he'll explain his connection to the company, which is great as well. So typically we like to talk about our guest's experience in prison, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about sort of your life prior to your incarceration and how that perhaps, had a lot to do with the path that you ended up taking.
Absolutely.
It sounds like, if I can just be very direct, it sounds like you were born into a very, very difficult kind of childhood.
So when I was little, I was probably okay. I mostly lived with my grandmother. My mom was 16 when she got pregnant with me. So, they're kids, really. When I got a little bit older, it was, just partying and, stuff like that. But I think by the time I hit my teenage years, even preteen, I'd say preteen is probably accurate. They were on their way to, like real addiction. We'll call it that, real addiction. Their drug of choice was cocaine. Started off with, doing lines and drinking with their friends and, trying to stay awake through work because they partied all night the night before, that sort of thing. I think it probably started out, this is going to sound stupid, but innocent enough. They were just dabbling. But my dad sold pot too. So there was a lot of that going on. A lot of people in and out of the house a lot. So I think right around the time I hit 14, yeah, 14 or so, they started freebasing, which was pretty bad. You know, like they just smoked everything. They smoked a boat, they smoked cars, they smoked our house, they smoked everything. And then after my brother was born, then they switched from, you know, he graduated from the freebase pipe to the needle, and then shit got real. It was really bad.
And as a 14-year-old, you saw it all happening. I mean, what did you make of it? What did you know, how did you rationalize it? Or, you know, how could you understand it as a kid?
To be perfectly honest, at 14, I was pretty social. I didn't really care what they were doing. They weren't doing anything in front of me. I, you know, kind of suspected what they were doing. I knew they were doing something. They never came out of they had a spare bedroom. They called it the spare room. Their spare bedroom was kind of an office, and they never came out. You know, I'd knock on the door and ask for dinner, and the door would open and a $20 bill would come out. And I guess I'm having pizza again. Okay. But I didn't really care at that point. At 14, I just didn't care. I'd go out with my friends. I'd take off. I had more freedom than anybody. Nobody paid any attention to what I did. I could be gone for the weekend and they probably wouldn't even notice. I had no restrictions whatsoever. And, you know, my dad was a drug dealer, so he had money. Like my allowance was, I think about this. I mean, you know, back up to the 1980s, my allowance was $50 a week, which is crazy. That's like, yeah. That's how it was. And if I needed extra money for other things, he'd give it to me. He'd give me money anytime I wanted it.
It seems like the game got pretty serious when your baby brother was born, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my brother was born in 1985. He was born addicted, and you know, my mom just couldn't take care of him. She couldn't take care of herself. They were still freebasing then. They didn't start using the needle until maybe a year after. Yeah, like I was probably 15 when they started doing that. And then so the difference between somebody using that drug, you know, and smoking that drug and then using it intravenously it's a pretty big difference, right? So it went from, you know, people like stopping by, you know, coming and picking up their drugs or whatever they were buying from my dad. It went from that to like people are just, they don't leave. They just show up, and like there's people sleeping all over the floor. And, you know, like I'm walking through the living room, I get up in the morning, I'm walking through the living room, I'm stepping over bodies. There's, you know, paraphernalia everywhere. It's bad. You know, like it's not the same thing. Like they tried to keep things semi-private when they were smoking. When they went to the needle, they just didn't give a shit anymore. It was bad. I lived in a flock house.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like. Your mom had her struggles with addiction too, that you went through your early days with, right?
Yeah, I want to speak on, like, when you first reached out to me and you was transparent, you was vulnerable, you shared your story. And as I read your story in the email, I couldn't help but visualize as I read everything off and digested it mentally. I couldn't help but see my own life in your life, right? Two different people, same set of circumstances. And we don't often talk about, you know, the invisible elephant in the room on the yard a lot, which is trauma. We kind of like talk around it, if you would. We don't directly deal with the trauma on the show, but you can see the evidence of it in times, like when I was on my show talking about my son, I broke down. So it's like, as you're explaining your story and giving this visual, verbally giving this visual, I'm visualizing everything. I'm like, yo, like that sounds just like my life. It sounds just like, it's bringing me right back to 86, 87. My mother was, you know, smoking, you know, calling it free base. She was smoking crack cocaine, rock cocaine. And she, you know, she smoked the TV. She smoked our Christmas presents. You name it, she smoked. And that's a slang we kind of use it as a metaphor, if you would, that she smoked the TV. When in actuality, she would sell the TV for crack cocaine, and then she would smoke the crack cocaine.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of it just bringing back mad memories, man. Just bringing me to that space and that time, man.
So at a certain point, I guess you were really the parent to your baby brother, it sounds like,
Mm,
and protector, because nobody else was really in any condition to take care. Is that fair?
absolutely. Yeah. They didn't, they didn't, if I went to school, if I tried to go to school, I was a sophomore when I dropped out of school. I would go to school, and then when I would come home from school, my brother would be in the same clothes, in the same crib, with the same bottle. They never even went in and checked that. They just left him in this crib. Like I couldn't leave him. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't do anything. I just, they would sleep all day and then stay up all night. And there was one incident I'll share with you that they felt guilty for some reason one night in the middle of the night. They took the baby out. He was like 2, maybe not even 2, maybe like 18 months. I mean, just barely walking. They took him out of his crib and put them in the bed with them, put him in the bed with them, because they had a guilty moment or whatever. Well, so I woke up in the morning and the slider in the back door was ajar. It was open like this much. And I was like, that's not good. So I went upstairs. I looked in the crib, no baby. Went in my parents' room. Where's the baby? I don't know. We put him in the bed with us. I'm like, why? So I went out and I can see, like, because we lived in these townhouse project apartments, I could see like there's like a row of other apartments and ground floor apartments that have patios. They're not fenced off or anything. They're just open. So I could see where he pulled a big wheel off somebody's patio. I can see a ball in the grass where I could see where he had been, and they're following me and I'm looking for him. And so a cruiser comes, which is a cop car. A cruiser comes and I'm going to go flag the cruiser down. They're like, no, don't do that. But flag the cruiser down and talk to the officer and, explain to him what happened. The child got out of the house and, I don't know how long he's been gone. Could be 30 minutes, could be an hour. I don't know. They asked me what he's wearing. I gave him a description. And so again, apparently a lady had picked him up in the park that was across the street, and the street's kind of busy. So the kid crossed the street by himself. But he was at this lady's house. And so I got in the car with the cop, and the cop took me and I picked him up and brought him back. But, like they didn't want me to flag the cop down. We wouldn't have got him back. Like, if you can't just leave him there, what the hell's wrong with you? It's like stupid stuff like that would happen all the time. I call them idiosyncrasies, like dumb things that happen because you're high.
Could you ever confront your parents? Or was that like a waste of time?
My parents are sober now. My dad did some time, and my mom was just by herself in Chicago because I left with the baby, and my dad went to prison again. And so she was just by herself. So she finally just went to rehab. So my parents are sober now.
That's great. That's great.
And how is your brother?
My brother is just turned 35 years old. He's a good dude. He lives about 2 blocks away from me. He stays, he's got 2 boys of his own. He's good. He's really good. He went to Wyotech and got a bachelor's degree, and I don't know exactly what what his exact degree is for, but something to do with powder coating and body work.
Yeah.
Good for him. Good. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're 16, 17 years old. You get married, as I understand, and you marry a guy who's still very involved. I mean, at the time was very involved with the drug trade. And how did you get involved with taking drugs? Was it just because of enough is enough? Everybody's doing it.
No.
Why am I not doing it? No.
No, it was all me. It was me. So I didn't marry Thomas until I think I was 24 when I married Thomas. So there was a gap of time, between, one episode of what you're talking about and the next. There's a chunk of time there that's, kind of normal. I worked at a restaurant. I started off as a waitress, and I was a trainer, and then I was an assistant manager, and then I had, I was an associate manager. I worked at a restaurant, at a 24-hour restaurant. So started off with, using meth to, I because of the I didn't have little kids like the rest of my group did or the rest of the managers did. So I would float between different shifts. I'd work, sometimes I'd work a day shift, 2-day shifts to relieve one manager for their days off. And then the next day I might be, working a dinner shift. And then the next day, I know she's crazy. The next day I might be working a graveyard shift. I'm sorry, guys. But let me try this. See if that works. But it's kind of all over the place with my schedule. And I started with, they call them bumps. I'll just do a bump and it'll help me get through my shift or whatever.
And that was meth. They called the meth bumps.
Bump. Yep. Just a bump. Mm-hmm. So we started with that. Just gotta make sure she's not eating my wires. So from there, I'm trying to remember where I met my husband, but I didn't know him very long. I met him and within a month I was married to him. We flew to Vegas and got married. And interestingly, I didn't really know him that well. We were at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, and we were there for 3 or 4 days, and he says, I got to go home because I got to see my parole officer. And I'm like, we're on parole. He just got out of prison. I didn't know that. I didn't.
Neither did Tracy.
Nope, neither did Tracy. I'm gonna grab her real quick. 1 sec.
Okay.
I'm right here. I can hear you. I'm sorry.
For those who have just joined us recently, our guest tonight is Lisa Troutman, who has been describing her early life and the challenges she faced. And I just sort of, as a spoiler alert, all of this has a very happy ending. So, hang in there through the tough parts, but I think you'll be smiling by the end. Okay, so you're married, you have what started innocently enough with a kind of a drug habit. It gets worse and worse. Taking drugs is an expensive proposition for anybody. So what were you doing? What was the fraudulent shit that you were engaged in?
So that started with, I got to the point in my drug addiction where I couldn't really function. Meaning like I could function, I could get up and move around. That's not what I mean by that. I mean, like I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't stay employed because I couldn't show up anywhere on time. I was scatterbrained. I was like all over the place, and I just couldn't keep a job. And so I also didn't want to give up my lifestyle. I was, not that it was glamorous or anything, but I had a checking account that didn't have any money in it. So I wrote checks off of it to, for groceries, for merchandise that I returned for cash, for, stuff like that. That's how it started.
And that was to feed the habit?
Well, that was to feed the habit and support my lifestyle. There's also, some stuff going on with, I met through the course of my addiction, I met other people who were involved with manufacturing. I would write checks to, we call it fund the cook, if that makes sense. To,
fund the what? Did you
fund the cook? Mm-hmm.
Cook.
Fund the cook,
and that
right.
means, that means basically help paying for the supplies, or
correct.
So they could manufacture?
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah. So there was some of that going on. When I ran out of checks, I just went and opened an account somewhere else and started over. And then I did it again and again.
I guess those are the good old days. Can't do that anymore.
No. No, now I have my own money. I don't do that anymore.
No, I mean not you. I'm just saying the way the bank system works.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't get away with that now. But in the early 2000s, that's how it was. You could get away with that.
Shit.
Hey, let me ask you, as you were going through this, was there anything that you were saying, holy shit, I'm becoming my parents?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I married a younger version of my father. you know,
That
like,
makes
because,
sense.
yeah, for sure. There's that. And, you know, like I had, after I was married 5 years when I had my first child, my daughter, Antoinette. And then I had my son, like right after. They were back to back. They're like 16 months apart. But, you know, like I promised myself that I would never put my kids through what my parents put me through. But it was a lie. That's a lie. I did that to them. I abandoned them because I went to prison and I couldn't take care of them myself. And so I did exactly what my parents did. I mean, I wasn't in a spare room, you know, or down the hall. I was completely gone. It was even worse.
The prison cell.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
Is it
okay.
is it even now painful for you to think about that? Or I
Yeah,
mean, have you come to terms with it, or how do you
that's
see it?
probably the worst part. I think out of everything is the that I didn't get to raise my own kids.
Well,
Um,
you said you said in the email to me that your children don't really remember that part of you, right?
they don't remember it at all because my kids
that's a good
were,
thing for you because my son actually remembers a lot, right? I left him when he was 3, returned when he was 10, and then in and out, you know, dealing with recidivism. So he remembers all of that. And so I'm still trying to reconcile, you know, the unspoken of gone and these things between me and him. Because when you as they say, you know, hurt people, traumatize people. And I
mhm,
was actually speaking to a Udacity, one of your Udacity colleagues, that you know he shared with me that he had a family of brothers who were incarcerated, so forth and so on. And then, you know, I explained to him, I said, you gotta realize that you're also system impacted. Because you didn't
yeah,
go to prison, me and Richard talk about this all the time. Because you didn't go to prison doesn't mean you're not system impacted.
that's
You're
true.
system impacted by default, by proxy, if you would,
Yep.
because you have suffered, like my son has suffered. And you know, and I think about this now, like I was traumatized. I did things that be out of my trauma that then re-traumatized my child. So you have to really think about that deep and be like, okay, but I'm glad that you know that doesn't exist for you, which is a blessing in disguise, if you
Well,
will.
it does, and I mean, they don't remember, like, they don't remember me being on drugs because
Right.
Tony was 2 years old, two and
But
a
your
half years
absence.
old,
Right.
um, and my son was a year. Like I went to jail on March 9th. He just turned a year on February 20th, so he's just
Oh,
barely a year old.
right, right.
So they don't have any memories of, you know, like what mommy looked like when she was on drugs. They don't remember.
Right. And you got a
But
pretty long sentence too.
yeah, when I got out, they were 10 and 12. So they remember
Wow.
from that point. And I didn't relapse. I didn't go back to jail or to prison. I didn't do anything. Like, I was so terrified of going back that I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't touch a drink. I didn't, nothing.
That's amazing.
So
You
Hey,
became rehabilitated.
well, we're going to talk about that, but before we do, our friend Craig, who's in the audience, um, wrote something. He goes, "A court doesn't sentence a defendant; the court sentences an entire family."
Craig, always
true
dropping the
story.
jewels, man.
And,
Always giving us great insight.
it's a great insight, and he's a guy who should know because Craig was given a life sentence, if you could believe that, for
Wow.
being involved with marijuana. Yeah,
Survive it.
beyond fathomable. He received a pardon from Trump, or at least during Trump's administration, and that and a few other people that I know who received pardons. It's about the only good thing that I can speak about that administration. Also, before we just go here, our friend Pinky, who joins us on a weekly basis, she is involved. She says she's the host of a women's march rally that is fighting against the Texas abortion law. And she has a link that talks about what's going on in this event. And I urge everybody who's so inclined. Pinky is a great friend and an advocate for just justice in general. So here's something she's involved with. But in any event, getting back sorry, I just wanted to make sure we address some of those things from our wonderful audience. So eventually, this lifestyle and the fraudulent shit caught up to you, as inevitably it will, and you were arrested, I guess. How did that happen?
So the first time I was arrested for writing one check. And I went, I'm going to back up. I was arrested once for drugs. I went to trial and I won. I don't know how, but that happened. The first time I went to trial and it was a hung jury. They tried me again and I was acquitted. So I got acquitted on the first charge. The second time I had a public defender and everything, but I didn't have any prior. So I was like, let's throw the dice, like that's how my brain works. Like, wow.
Right. Shake them up, shake them up.
Yep.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right. I crap out.
We'll see. Right. So because I did it again, I got in trouble for, I got charged with 1 count of forgery because at some point, all the accounts that I opened or whatever, all those checks ran out. Then I started writing other people's checks.
Multiple accounts. That's what it was.
Yeah. So I wrote a check and I got in trouble. I got arrested for that. And I hired a lawyer and I went to trial and I lost. And so I had to start, but I didn't have any convictions on my record. I'd never been on probation or anything like that. I was sentenced to 3 months in county jail and 3 years of standard probation. So when I went to jail, I had a self-surrender. I self-surrendered. I went to jail for the 3 months. The day before I went to jail, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. So now I'm in jail and I'm pregnant. Yay, yay me. So I got out, I was 5 months pregnant. And, the good news is that that 3 months that I was locked up gave me the opportunity to be sober. Right. I got to clean up. And so when I got out, I just didn't touch drugs. I was pregnant. And then after I had my daughter, I started using again because I gained a bunch of weight and I wanted, I knew the meth would take the weight off. So I started using again. My husband was still using.
Wow.
So then the whole thing started back up. I had another incident a couple of years later. I think the first conviction was it was like in the 90s. It was like 1998 or 99. And then the next time I got in trouble I got attempted fraud schemes, which whatever that means. They found a bunch of stuff my house got raided. And they found a bunch of stuff in my house that looked like I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. And they couldn't prove the whole fraudulent scheme. So they just called it attempted. And I signed a plea for that one. I didn't take it to trial that time.
That was 12 years?
No, not that one.
Oh, okay.
That was time 2. For that one, I got 3 years of standard probation and 6 months in jail, but they deferred it because I had the baby. They didn't want.
First sentence, right? Yeah. So
I didn't ever serve that time. I never went to jail for the 6 months. They only make you go to jail for the 6 months if you violate, and I didn't violate.
Right.
So I didn't have any more problems until 2004. In 2004, my addiction was really bad. I had 2 kids then. I had my son in between all of that. And my addiction was bad. Sorry, somebody's trying to call me. So the last time I got in trouble, it was like, Arizona doesn't do 3 strikes like California does. Like they do 3 strikes and you're out. Arizona doesn't do that. Arizona does, like each time you get a little bit more, you get a little bit more. Well, for me, I got a little bit, and then I got slammed. So it was like, they're just sick of me. They're sick of talking to me. They're sick of the whole thing. And so they just gave me 12 years.
That is crazy. So can I ask a question about that real quick, Richard? Was that guideline basis or just the fact that it was like the 3rd offense and the same type of crime?
It was a similar crime, not exactly the same. Remember the second time they couldn't really prove what I was doing.
Right. So is that what kind of enhanced it though to 12 years?
Well, the 2 priors definitely counted for sentence enhancement. Yes.
Got it.
So the other, I got charged with 4 counts of fraudulent schemes. and I got 12 years on each one, and they ran them concurrent. So I
Okay, wow,
got one,
wow.
yeah.
And that was the
Alright.
maximum sentence?
No, it's an aggravated sentence, not a max sentence. The
Okay.
max on it was 18.5. I signed a plea for 9 1/4, and they gave me 12.
Wow.
So do you remember that moment when you had a rise in court and the judge was going to render the decision regarding your sentencing?
Yep.
And the judge said, you know, you've been convicted of this, and I sentence you to 4 counts, 12 years each, running consecutively. You remember that moment of standing there? I remember that moment when the judge gave me my sentence. Do you remember that day?
Oh man, the hammer came down, yeah. Hammer came down and tears started flowing. It was like a chain reaction. As soon as the hammer went down, my son's screaming, I'm crying, my girlfriend's crying, it's crazy.
Yeah. So what was going through your mind when you heard your sentence, Lisa?
My judge told me that, you know, I know you've never been to prison before, and that's the only reason that I'm not stacking these cases. I hope you sit down and, you know, think about the path that your life is on, and, you know, figure out how you're going to turn it around, or not, you know, and it was all very like, step to your left, next, you know, it was just kind of like an assembly line. And I don't know, I felt very discombobulated. I had shackles on my wrists and my feet. My family was in the room, and my mom was, that's the first time I've ever seen my mom cry in my life. My mother, wow. I made my mother cry that day, which is,
wow.
Yeah, my mother doesn't cry. Like, I made my mom cry. Wow. And I talked to my mom on the phone later, you know, like after I got bused back to the county. And I talked to my mom on the phone, and she's like, this is totally my fault. But I'm like, it's not your fault, Mom. I'm 31 years old. Like, how can this be your fault? If I was 18 and I did something this bad, and, you know, like, it's my fault. I have to be accountable for it. I have to own my own mistakes in order to grow from them. I have to own them.
Do you feel that way now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty admirable that you're that honest with yourself, and that, you know, you made decisions of your own free will. But don't you think, I mean, honestly, that the world you were born into and the environment and everything else, it could have been very different in a different environment, the path of your life, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yes, but, you know, my mother still didn't, you know, put a pen in my hand and make me go to a store and write a bad check. She didn't do that. I did that. My mother didn't raise me right. That's true. I know right from wrong. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know that. I'm doing it anyway.
How do you know right from wrong if you didn't get it from your parents?
Well, at 31, I know right from wrong. At 18, maybe not. But 31, I do. I'm doing it anyway. And that's the part where I'm like, that's me. I did that.
Can I speak? Okay. Yeah. I want to speak to that real quick. So I started selling drugs at 13 years old to survive, right? I knew that selling drugs was not the right thing to do, but psychologically, emotionally, I justified that in the sense that I was doing it for a positive reason. I was doing it out of survival, right? So my own survival is what pushed me to the streets, pushed me to sell drugs and do my thing to make money. And I've always justified that in the sense of I'm just surviving. I'm just using the resources I have to do what I have to do. Even though I knew that selling drugs was wrong, I knew that I could get arrested for doing it. But nevertheless, I still did it. And what happens is I built this habit, and psychologically, it was always what I always relied on because it was a safe haven for me. It became my safe zone. Me selling drugs was how I survived and how I found a peace of mind to bring money in to maintain.
And something you were good at as well.
Exactly. So it's almost like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
You can say that, you know, your mother didn't force you to do it. Your childhood and upbringing played a major role in pushing you in that direction. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm the one that got to go to jail. My mom's not going to jail.
Right.
You got to go to prison, right? You're not locking her because you was a bad mother and you smoke crack cocaine or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm the one going. because of what I did. But I got caught in that vicious cycle.
Lisa, do you feel, jumping ahead, you've had what I would consider a very successful reentry, certainly compared to a lot of other people. Do you believe that your honesty and your willingness to take ownership and responsibility, was that a critical element, and in fact, for anyone else, a critical element to have a successful reentry?
Yes. And so that comes from the steps, that comes from the program, right? So while I was in, I worked the NA program to the letter. I didn't let me back up just a little bit before we get into the I'm in prison part. So I'm on a bus, I'm shackled and I'm chained, and I'm with 30 other women, and we're all on a bus, and we're driving from Maricopa County Jail to Perryville Prison for women. And I'm sitting in the back of this bus, and I'm like, what just happened? You know, I've never been to prison before, so I didn't know what to expect. I was terrified. I didn't say anything, but you know, I'm terrified, right? But all I kept thinking is, I have to turn this around. I can't just, I can't live here. I mean, I can't, this situation has to get unfucked somehow. I have to get the situation unfucked, because right now it's fucked, right? And so in my head, I'm like, how are we going to do this? What are we going to, I have to just make this happen. And, you know, number one thing, the most glaring thing, the elephant in the room, if you want to call it that, whatever, is this damn drug addiction. It's got to go. It has to go. I can't live with it anymore. And I mean, I could get drugs in prison, and you can get drugs in prison. Everybody knows that. It's available. It's there. I'm not going to do that. Enough is enough. And so, you know, that was step one, recovery. Let me change my mindset. And I was twisted in my head. I was not honest with myself or anybody else. I blamed everybody else for everything that happened to me. You know, but I started to work the program, and I started to peel the layers of the onion back, you know, if that makes any sense. And I started to like really examine why I was doing the things that I was doing. How did I get here? And how do I get out of here? Like, I couldn't get out of this prison sentence. That it doesn't happen.
So you show up at prison for the first day. I mean, do you remember that time when you got off the bus in shackles? I've been in shackles like that. It's really a singular experience. I mean, you know, you can't even imagine like what happened to my life.
Yeah.
That
how did I get here?
On my waist with chain, my feet. It's like, this is like medieval almost. And you're like just taking these tiny little steps. You're chained to someone that if they move, it's grabbing on you. And you go, holy shit, like, how did this happen in my life?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk into the prison. Do you remember that step where you first got in there? I remember it so vividly. It was like I didn't want to take that step, because I knew the minute I took it, the door would slam, and now I'm in fucking prison. Oh my God.
Yo, that feeling is,
you remember that moment?
That feeling in your stomach, that like when you realize, damn, I'm caught. Like I was getting away with shit. I was doing what I had to do, and now I'm fucking caught. And now I'm gotta get booked and fingerprinted and being sent on the bus. And oh man, that pit in your stomach, that whole transition time and that first night back in prison is the worst.
Do you remember that moment for you, Lisa?
Oh yeah. Yep, sure do. I remember a lot of things about that day. I remember being, number one, I was relieved, because there was okay, this is what we're doing. It's over. There's no more uncertainty. There's no more, you know, like I remember some level of relief. And I remember feeling very happy to be out of county jail, because it's disgusting, a horrible place. I didn't eat the whole time I was there. I ate Cheez-Its. I wouldn't eat their food. Their food was, I just couldn't, it wasn't digestible. I just didn't eat anything. Nothing that I couldn't buy. I ate stuff I could buy off the commissary. I didn't eat any of their food. And I also didn't drink their water because K-Dorm had a E. coli break. And no, thank you. I'll pass on being sick in county jail. No thanks. So I was drinking like soda. I was buying off the store, and I would drink milk. They brought me milk. You know, one meal a day, little yellow curtains. I would drink that, and that was pretty much it. So when I got to prison, I was sick from it. Like, it made me sick, not drinking any water. So I remember being relieved to be out of county jail. And then I remember fear and stepping off the bus. It was just a whole series of very uncomfortable things with a lot of ladies that I didn't know and didn't really want to know. I just kind of kept to myself, but I don't know. I mean, I remember feeling really pretty defeated.
And you were also addicted and going through withdrawal, I guess, or no, at that point?
Not really. I mean, at that point, like, meth doesn't really have a physical withdrawal symptom. Like, you'll sleep for a week, but I've been in county for 6 months. So, I mean, that's kind of over.
So it was out of your system at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
You got there with a 12-year sentence. So you must have been, at a medium security facility or something like that?
Yeah. Yes, I was medium custody.
Okay. Were you threatened or feel threatened initially? Or...
I mean, I thought in my head, am I going to get shanked? I thought that, but it's not really, it wasn't really like that.
It wasn't.
No, women are a lot different than men. Okay, so in terms of, I mean, I know my husband's done time, and he tells me about, you know, his experiences, you know, in the joint and all of that. And, you know, compared to my experiences, you know, with him, everything's very segregated. Maybe not anymore, but it was when he was there. He's been out since, I think, 2008. He's
segregated by race, you mean?
By race, yeah. Very racially segregated.
That's not true where you were?
No, not at all. No. No, we don't segregate. And we also, women also tend to handle their disputes verbally or in a shady way, you know, like a manipulative way. Like, I can give you some examples if you need, but women don't typically, I'm not saying ever, but they don't typically handle their disputes physically.
Physically, yeah, the violence.
Yeah, not really.
I've been watching too much movies then.
Orange is the New Black isn't that far off, but I mean, like, it's dramatized, right? It's drama, dramedy.
So we often hear stories, and in fact, when I went to prison, the night that I was there, a couple of guys came to me, and they were giving me like shower shoes and a toothbrush and deodorant, and I was very, very suspicious because
I don't give you anything on your own.
Okay, I heard, you know, don't owe anybody anything.
Oh no, you pay. Yeah, you pay in the way you don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very, very suspicious, and they go, listen, we understand you're suspicious, but someone did this for us, and now we're doing it for you. This is what you need. You don't owe us anything, whatever. And they were honest, and that was true.
Right.
Were you very conscious of, you must have had a sense of prison as you were going in there and what to avoid doing and how to stay out of trouble, right?
Yes, for sure. So first thing that happened was, you know, like they put you in, you're in intake, right? So you're in intake for a couple weeks, and it's like a lottery, you know, like you go to intake, you're locked down 23 out of 24. You know, and then once you're placed on a permanent yard, then, you know, that's where you go. But for a couple weeks, I think I was at an intake. And intake is a max yard. So I have a friend that lives on that same unit, not on the same yard, on the intake yard, but in the yard next to him. And so her roommate was my counselor's clerk. So she brought me coffee and cocoa and all kinds of stuff. You know, my friend sent that stuff over to me. So there was that. But the women on the yard were taking, because when you come in, they give you like a net bag full of your blankets,
Yeah,
your
the laundry bag, yeah.
the laundry bag full of crap, right? So some of the stuff they were giving us was brand new and some of it was used. Like the blankets were new and some of the, the other items
Linen,
were new.
use,
The
yeah.
girls in the laundry who live on, on Lumley, on that unit, they deal in that stuff. They want the new stuff, the brand new stuff or whatever. So they're buying things for cigarettes and, bartering, trading. And so I didn't have to do any of that, but there was a lot of that going on. We'd only get out for an hour and the whole time it was just a big shuffle, like everybody trading their stuff off or whatever it was that they wanted.
How long did it take you to sort of be able to get sleep, a good night's sleep, and to sort of feel like, okay, I understand what the deal is, I know what I got to do, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, did it happen quickly or, was it a hard adjustment?
It was a hard adjustment. It was difficult to adjust to prison life. It wasn't what I was used to at all. It wasn't about like the freedom I could go. I mean, they pretty much opened the yard twice a day for 3 hours at a time, which was enough. At Perryville, you could have your own TV. I didn't have one when I first got there. I didn't have any money, but my Sally had one, so she let me watch hers. So I pretty much just really it was, I didn't get like comfortable and into a routine until I started going to school and doing programs and working. I didn't work at the call center right away. I worked in the kitchen for a while as a cook. I was a diet cook for a while. From there, I worked at the garment factory. I made sweatpants and shorts and bras and shit like that. And then from there, I got into Celebrity. I was there about 2 years.
How long did it take you to like really realize like, to get settled in, quote unquote, into the bid, into that 12-year sentence you knew you had to do? And how long did that take? And then from that point, before you got into the Televerde program?
Well, I didn't get into Televerde until I was there 2 years. I got there. I started Televerde in 2007.
Let's just take a moment and explain what Televerde is.
Sure.
I know about them because I spoke to leadership there about partnering with them, but they are a foundation and also a for-profit company, and they operate call centers in a number of women's prisons.
Correct.
And women are on the phone. You'll explain, what companies you were helping or whatever, and they generate leads for companies or customer service or what have you. And they actually pay, it's not a lot of money and it's below minimum wage, but it's a hell of a lot better than the 17 cents a day I was paid.
Well, the 12 cents I was paid.
Yeah. So that's what they do. So you're there for 2 years and you said, all right, that sounds pretty good to me. So they took you on about it.
So it's not like that. I mean, like they didn't just take me on. That sounds good. No, that job is like the only job on the yard that pays a retention wage. A retention wage is anything that creates a savings. DOC double dips, triple dips on everything. So
probably quadruple dips.
There's different layers, right? So ACI, which is a third party, Televerde pays ACI. ACI takes their cut. So Televerde does pay minimum wage, but ACI takes their cut. And then from there, it goes into a retention account.
Brutal.
And DOC takes 30% off the top for room and board. And then from there, I mean, it just keeps going. Oh, and then the restitution.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the restitution.
Don't forget that. And then at the end of the whole thing, I think I got we got 50 cents an hour on our books. The rest of it, after all the deductions and everybody got their hands in the pot, everybody got out of the pocket, like whatever was left went into retention fund that we were not allowed to access because DOC is collecting interest on that money that's sitting in savings.
Unbelievable.
Yes,
DOC is shady. The plot thickens.
So now you had a job. How many hours a day did you work?
When I first started, just 8. I do 8, maybe 9. At the end, I was working I would go in at 6 and I would stay till 5. I just didn't want to be on the yard at all.
And you're averaging 50 cents an hour? Is that correct? Or
No, I was making, and when I left there, I was making $5.85, I think.
okay, after all the after all the double, triple dippings.
Oh, the 50 cents an hour that's my they call it a whip. That's my pocket money.
Oh, okay.
But the balance of that money goes into a retention fund that I did get when I got out. I got that money when I got out.
Got it.
Right. Okay.
I left Perryville with $34,000.
Damn.
How much?
34 grand.
34,000, Richard. How many stocks can I get with that? I'm going to Wall Street with Richard.
You could buy a lot of mackerel with that.
Definitely not a mackerel, right?
I just worked and worked and worked, dude.
And you must have gotten very good at your job.
I just worked all the time.
Wow. And I guess that shows up at Udacity too, right? That work ethic.
Udacity doesn't want me to work all the time. They like me to have work-life balance, which is full of them. I would work myself to death because it's just what I'm used to.
Right.
But I've learned.
Let's hold off on your release because that's the next phase.
Right.
So
a lot of people, you got out, I guess, a couple of years early on probation.
So I got a 12-year sentence, but Arizona, you do 85% inside and the other 15% on parole.
So my sentence.
That's like federal. The same.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
So you did 10 years or something like that, I guess.
Right about 10 years.
How did you get through 10 years? 10
years.
years.
I worked and worked and worked. I also built a parenting class. It's called True Story Parenting. True Story Parenting ran from 2009, I think. Oh, sorry about that. From 2009 until I was released. And it ran for a little while after I was released, and then they lost the facilitator and whatever. But the parenting, I would do parenting on, 1 day a week. And then there's a lot of prep that goes along with that. I did computer classes, distance learning, distance learning classes through Rio Salado College. I exercised. I just kept busy. I just kept myself distracted from it. I didn't think about it. I just stayed busy. I was busy all the time. And when I wasn't busy, I was super happy to have some time to relax, and I just lay on my bed and watch TV.
Right. Stuck to your routine, stay focused, head down. You wanted to get out of there.
Did you have any issues with guards there, correctional officers?
Inmates?
Didn't really get along with them.
I don't talk to them. I just stay away from them. If I need something, I ask. But
that's a rule. Don't talk to the guards.
Don't talk to them.
Okay.
We're
talking with Lisa Troutman, who is coming to the end of her sentence as it relates to our discussion. Thank God she's getting out soon. Jenny, who is a frequent participant with us and visitor, she writes, first off, Lisa, wow. Thank you for sharing your story. And I think we all share that feeling and that appreciation. She asks 2 questions. Number 1, could anyone have done anything for you that would have helped not to go down this path? I mean, she asked afterwards, does intervention work? Could any of that, short-circuited the inevitability of what you went through?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I didn't have anybody try, so I can't say for certain one way or the other if that would have worked, but probably not. Addicts are, in your head, you think nobody can tell, which is bullshit. Everybody can tell. And you think, you don't really have a problem. Everybody, I don't know. Your head is twisted and you're not thinking clearly. And, you want to protect your own reputation and your own, you want to protect your drug addiction too, because you don't want to quit. Nobody wants, to really quit.
Getting high is fun. I enjoyed it.
I have no intentions of finding out now, but at the time I liked it.
We keep it real in the yard, goddammit.
Sid asks, and Sid, by the way, thank you for connecting with me today and introducing me to your friend. Sid asks, is it mandatory to be working in prison or is it optional? At some prisons, it's mandatory, and at some it is optional. But generally speaking, people want to work, I mean, there are people who have nobody to give them money for their commissary account.
Me
So
too.
as it was, what?
Me too.
I was signaling I was one of them.
Yeah. So, the commissary account enables you, and I think everybody, they give you this like mesh bag that I still have to this
Laundry
day.
bag.
And right, which you put your laundry in and you put your stuff.
Put everything in, Richard. It's a shopping bag.
Yeah, it's everything. You
Backyard
can use
bag.
a weapon. You can buy food there. You can buy batteries for your radio. You can buy stamps and pens. You can buy sneakers, all different kind of things. And most prisons, they have a limit to how much you can have in your account, like $300 at any given time. And if you have family and friends who are giving you money, you don't have to worry about it. But many people don't have that, so they have to work. And even if it's just to make $50 in a month, it enables them to buy toothpaste, and stuff like that they wouldn't be able to afford. But really, working for most people is just another one of those things to get through the day and to keep you busy, and, there's certain jobs that people like, and, that are more design. I worked in the kitchen, and that meant I had access to more food, and better food. Not that it was that good, but it was better. And so for me, that was my job. And, Lisa worked at this call center. So you're coming towards, it's almost 10 years. At a certain point, you start thinking about, holy shit, I'm getting out of here soon. What the hell am I going to do? What does that look like? Where am I going to live? What am I going to do? What do I need to know? I freaked out 6 months before my release. I wasn't excited about leaving. I was afraid of leaving.
Right.
How did you feel about as you approached your release date?
It was so ridiculous. I planned everything. Like I had lists upon lists upon lists of all the different things I wanted to buy, where I was going to go first, what I was going to get, and all of these things. And I mean, nothing stuck to plan. Absolutely nothing. Like I don't think I ever even opened my box after I came home. I don't think I ever opened my prison box again. I think it's still in my laundry room, to be honest. So I think that I overplanned and it was unnecessary. And I mean, it might have just been, a game I was playing in my own head to keep myself occupied and distracted from the whole impending transition. Transition's hard. Transition is very hard.
Yeah. I mean,
especially after being locked up.
You're in an environment where virtually every decision is being made for you, where you're not employing technology, where there's lots of people around you at all times.
It's terrifying.
Exactly. And then they push you out, and the terms of your release are such that you need to get a job and you need to find a place to live, which means, that's a whole challenge, and you need to get clothes and you need transportation, and, you need to see the doctor who you haven't seen in 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. And it's scary enough because you have no idea how to do any of this, but the terms of your release, be it parole or probation, it's called supervised release. One of the terms is, because they let you out early, is that you may not communicate with or hang out with anybody who's got a record. So all of the people who could best advise you and help you and inspire you, all of the people who could be friends or could offer suggestions and support, you are completely by law cut off from. Leaving you who? Friends that abandoned
I
you?
have no
Friends
idea
that-
what you're going through.
and
Yeah,
I have no
exactly.
idea what you're going through, even if they were there. It's like absolutely insane. I mean, that was one of the reasons why we launched Commissary Club, quite frankly, is because unless you've been to prison, the loneliness you feel, the despair you feel when you're released is so daunting and debilitating. And, you know, it's no wonder that the rate of recidivism in this country is 75%, that there's so much substance abuse and mental health issues and homelessness and all kinds of terrible things, you know, for people because they don't have any of the tools or support or community, you know.
So
And it's a
for
shame.
me, I did everything that I could to set myself up for success when I was released. You can do your time one of two ways. You can do what I did, or you can lay on your bed and you can watch TV. You're welcome to do that. Your choice.
And how did
So-
that, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
and how did that setting up for success lead to the pathway to Udacity?
So
Oh, yeah.
From
How
Telaverde.
did that all happen?
well, I mean, I've been out for 7.5 years. So I've been at Udacity for 1 year. So a lot of things have happened between 2014 and today. All of them, I don't want to say all, but most of them positive. Things have been moving in a positive direction since I came home. I mean, it was pretty unnerving, but like I said, I got out, I had $34,000 in my pocket. And, you know, and I think you might be able to relate to this. I went to go buy a car, and I wanted to buy as new of a car as I could possibly get for cash, because I don't know how my life's going to turn. I don't know which direction I'm going to go. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I don't want anybody to have something, a note over my car, and be able to take it away from me. So I just want to buy it. I don't want to build my credit. I don't care about all that. I just don't want anybody to take anything away from me, because I worked really hard for a really long time for that. And I don't want a car payment. I don't want to worry about it. If I screw my life up again, at
The
least I
car's
have my
yours.
car.
You still have a car, right?
Exactly. Worst case scenario, I still have my
You
vehicle.
can live in it if you need be.
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
My mom took me to buy a car. My parents took me to buy a car. We went to several dealerships, and I found a 2013 Dodge Avenger. It was 2014, so the car's like not even a whole year old. I paid $14,129 for the car. Okay. My parents were like, okay, well, we're going to go home. We'll see you later. And they just left me there while I'm going through the paperwork and dealing with the paperwork at the car place. So they give me the keys to the car. They put the temp plate on it. It's mine. I have insurance. I have everything that I need. I get in the car and I'm like, you know, shit.
How do I drive?
I haven't driven a car. I don't even know where I'm going. I have no idea how to work a smartphone. When I went to prison, there were flip phones. Like I thought I was still had a camera.
I remember those days.
Did you have a driver's license?
I have the driver's license. Yeah. When I went to prison, I had a driver's license. You know, it was still good. I didn't get any tickets. I was in prison.
Right. No moving violations.
No moving violation.
That was a good thing about prison.
Yeah. One of the few. Yeah. But I had to drive on the freeway by myself, and I haven't driven a car in a decade. And everything's different. Nothing looks the same.
No,
Like
I think
all the
it's changed,
landscape's different. I don't even know where I'm going. Like I got off on the wrong freeway. I ended up in complete wrong space. And that was like one of the weird side effects of, you know, like when I got out, I was so turned around all the time. My sense of direction like was really skewed. I couldn't tell north, south, east, and west. I was like, really like backwards. Another thing that happened too was I had a moment of vertigo. My family took me the day I got out. Stop, Tracy. The day I got out, my family took me to Cracker Barrel. You ever been to a Cracker Barrel?
Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
I've never been. I've seen them before.
I've never
actually
been.
Okay.
I've never been.
Me either.
So Cracker Barrel is kind of like a family restaurant, country type of, you know, country food or whatever, but they have a store. There's a store and, you know, they sell like garments and trinkets and Christmas stuff at Christmas time, that sort of stuff. And so but they have like potpourri, and it's very bright and very colorful in there, and kind of loud. And I mean, I had sensory overload. Like I walked into the door, and the smell and all the colors and the people clanking their forks and the bacon smell and the coffee smell and all of that. It was, I got overwhelmed. Like I almost passed out in there.
This prison's gray
and
it's like
yeah,
it's like a neutral type colors. It's not nothing bright. It's crazy.
It
Wow.
was,
Sid is going crazy about Cracker Barrel. He's talking about how the best meatloaf, the greatest fried chicken,
chicken liver was good there. The chicken dumpling, chicken
sensory
dumpling.
overload.
Wow.
That's a Yelp review.
It's not their fault. It's a Yelp review for DLC.
Sounds like a place to check out, man. Sounds like a good date place too. So for 7 years you're out, and eventually you found a home working at this great company, Udacity, right? Could you tell us how that happened and what you're doing there now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked at a company called M-Files before Udacity, and two of my colleagues were already at Udacity from previous, and then two more went from my actual team, and I came, like, I was the third one, and I think the last person before M-Files sent a letter of cease and desist because they felt Udacity was poaching their people.
Hey, you gotta be aggressive in these days and times.
They know good talent when they see it.
That's right.
So,
your hands on the pulse.
Udacity is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. All of the work that they're doing, the societal impact stuff that they're doing, all the corporate social responsibility stuff is like right up my alley. I get very excited about stuff like that. But also, like right in line, I'm doing right. The work that I'm doing is right in line with the experience that I have, that I got from Televerdi.
And you feel it's a comfortable environment. They accept you. They understand
it's a
your
fit.
background.
I don't know that everybody knows my story.
That's my next question.
Now they probably do, but
yeah, they do. Well, I was going to say that.
That's okay.
I was going to say that you were very, very, vulnerable and transparent about telling me your story, and then you mentioned, like, I'd love to be on the yard and share that. And I was like, yo, that'd be huge to do that, right? We have a similarity in our life stories. We both have the piece of Udacity, being a part of our journeys. So I was like, yo, absolutely. And you had no qualms, no reservation about like put it out there, let's go. So I really admire that.
So let's acknowledge in our audience, a big shot at Udacity is with us, Todd Floyd, who I believe heads up impact at the company, and that's a big job.
Yeah, Blake's on deck.
Udacity, we work with them in a little way because they have very generously and kindly given us to distribute 10 scholarships so that folks could go through their program that we identify as people who deserve this great opportunity and who will make the most of it. That's just an incredible act of kindness, from the whole company, from the top down. This is, they do great stuff. Doesn't matter what your background is. It's a great, facility and a great education that one can acquire. But particularly for the population we serve, it's, I guess, just an interest. And they put their money where their mouth is. So, and all of your associates who have joined us and who follow me on LinkedIn and everything else, you guys fucking rock. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Bless you, Udacity.
Thank you, Udacity.
Udacity forever.
Exactly. And two of my favorite people Divine, and my new favorite person, Lisa, are both involved. So you guys have impeccable taste. I will give you that as well. So good for you. So what is the future? I mean, we're going to be wrapping up soon, Lisa. What does the future look like? What's your goals? You know, do you look long term, or is it just get through every day? You know, how do you look at things?
No, there is no get through every day. Actually, I have a very beautiful life. I just got back from an amazing trip to paradise. I was in Maui for 2 weeks with my daughter. Like absolute paradise. That is great.
Tracy agrees.
Tracy agrees. Yeah, she's mad at
She's like home. She's like home.
dog.
I miss it.
But so no, there's no just getting through. It's really all about you know, making sure that I am secure for retirement, making sure that I'm comfortable now, getting my home paid off, you know, just like really focused on financial security and growing and, you know, growing in my role for sure. You know, I definitely want to do more. I want to be more involved in, you know, like some of the work that we're doing in underserved markets. I'm interested in that because of course it resonates with me. And with a lot of my
Todd is
colleagues from
waving you
Telebrune.
on.
He's
Todd
like, bring it
is
on,
like-
bring it on.
Todd
That's
is
right,
like the
Todd.
guy
That's
at
right.
the tarmac on the airline waving the plane in. He's waving
Yeah.
you in. And
It's important work and it needs to be done. And it's
Sure
really
is.
interesting to me because I sit back, you know, and I had this conversation with Blake. So I know you're listening, Blake. Our very first interview, our very first conversation was my last interview for Udacity. And Blake told me that the world was more forgiving than I thought.
Oh,
But
Wow.
it's not. Blake is.
Yeah,
Udacity
right? Yeah.
is. But the
Right, right.
all
world,
you
not
need
so
is
much.
one Blake.
It
at
only
the
takes
end of the
one,
day.
right? It only takes one, though. I talked about this in
No,
my
it's
when I did my
true. That's
presentation.
true.
One individual.
It's
Yeah,
absolutely
someone
true.
will believe.
But
So let me ask
the
you-
world is
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
changing. There's a point to this. The world is changing. It's shifting like right before our eyes. All of that stigma, all of that, you know, like the stigma of you know, somebody who's been previously incarcerated is going away. And people are like opening that, not necessarily because there's more demands, but people are starting to like to realize that, you know, people don't have to pay for that forever. We paid, I
Right.
paid.
And
You paid.
value lies there. There's real value that lies there. It has to be uncovered. It has to be given opportunity.
And not
And-
just that, but we're loyal. We're so grateful for our
Richard,
jobs.
yeah,
and
Richard
we're
knows this all too
so
well.
loyal.
That
And-
it's so true what you're saying. Studies have shown the data is incontrovertible that number one, people with records are as good as and frequently better than people without records on the job. And,
We
and
work
a lot
hard.
of it, they work hard and they're deeply appreciative that someone likely went out on a limb. So they reward that company with their loyalty, which is an old-fashioned concept that doesn't really much exist at the workplace anymore. But among this population, it does. Their retention is better. Young people now jump around from jobs. You know, life is, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. You know, folks with records can't make that assumption. So
we don't have
I-
that. We don't have that luxury. It's
Exactly.
hard to get a job with a
Exactly.
record
You know what-
and
you know
a
what I want-
background. It is.
You know, I wanted to ask you, Lisa, and you said this, and it resonated with me, was that you said that prison, you wouldn't be able to accomplish what you've accomplished in the sense of buying your home and all these other things, had it not been for your incarceration. Could you speak
True.
to that a little bit? Because I feel that way as well. My incarceration set the stage for how I would move, you know, through life after my incarceration. So explain that a little, please.
So without my incarceration, I'll tell you this part that there are people that I used to be in the underworld with. I call it the underworld, the drug world. You know, people I used to do drugs with.
Right. Yeah. The
Um,
shady drug
that-
trade.
In the drug trade, right? So there are people in that realm that felt bad for me when I went to prison and I got that much time. They were like, damn,
I was like, damn.
poor Lisa, you know, and that's really what they thought. Well, fast forward to 10 years that I did in prison. when I got out, those people that felt bad for me for going to prison were sitting on the same couch, smoking the same pipe. They didn't move. It was like the land that time stood still. Nobody did anything. They're still there. And that would have been me if I didn't go to prison. That would have been me if I wasn't motivated, if my head didn't get unclouded long enough for me to form a freaking thought that was, you know, like, hello, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like I needed that.
You feel the same way, Richard?
You and I, Dee, were talking earlier today, and we were talking that, Lisa, you have said that in certain respect, prison saved your life.
It did.
And we've heard that before. And Divine has said that it actually, I mean, nobody wants to go away. I mean, there's nothing about it.
We had another choice. I take Yale and Harvard over prison.
But it straightened me out, and it taught me a lot of things. If nothing else, you have a lot of time to self-reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And on the one hand, I feel almost disloyal to the cause by talking about prison in any positive way at all.
Right.
It's miserable on so many levels. But by the same token, you know, it probably saved a lot of lives, you know, which is kind of a dichotomy. I'm not sure how to reconcile.
I think prison in isolation provides a catalyst. And I just feel like you have to find it within you to take that opportunity and change. Take the opportunity to reflect and make, you know, do what you have to do so that when you return to society, you can be that much more productive and that much more successful.
And sort of make amends with people you love.
Exactly. The redemption piece, right? The redemption piece.
I honestly believe that God knows what he's doing. God knows what he's doing.
God knows what he's doing. That's a great and perhaps a fitting way for us to sort of wrap things up. Lisa, you have a lot of fans, at least among the people who've been listening, because a number of, what does that say? Untapped talent. Todd, you know, references you, but I'm sure he's talking about a lot of other people, that there's some really great ignored talent. And if you just try to find out a little bit and leave your prejudices and your, you know, ancient biases at the door, you may discover that there's some just really amazing people, you know, that you could be working with that will elevate your entire workforce. I can't imagine any company that wouldn't be better for having you. Lisa, a bunch of people here referred to you as a badass.
Nice.
in only the best way, I'm sure. You know, your strength, your perseverance, your grit, you know, it comes out in everything you say, and your smile and your confidence and everything else. You know, it's really an honor just to, you know, chat with you. I've always said, you know, Divine and I are very lucky, and Seth and Adrian and the rest of our team, we work with people that really, many of them are just heroic, you know, are just amazing. Craig Cecil, who's in our audience, is a heroic guy, you know, and they all want to do the right thing, and they want to pay their taxes, and they want to be good parents, you know, and our goal is just so that more and more people can see them and humanize them. You are human, and in Yiddish, we would call you a mensch, and that means you're a real person, which is a really high compliment. So we all share in the high compliments that we feel for you, and we're so thankful that you were so honest and sharing, you know, about your life and your path, and clearly wonderful things lie ahead for you. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us. I want to thank Udacity for having the brains to discover this incredible woman and others like her, and for your great path that you guys are on, and your support of all these, you know, important things that you do. And everybody else here, you know, many who join us nearly every week, I can't tell you how honored we are that you would think to come back and join us. And, you know, we're really thrilled. Adrian has put up in the chat room contact info for Televerde, which has a foundation. and you might want to check that out to see what about their work, as well as contact info for Udacity. And, you know, I always think I should take some classes, you know, I could learn.
Why
Why
not?
not?
We'll get you a
Why not?
scholarship.
No, I'll figure out a way to pay for it. That was not me trying to angle for a scholarship.
No, not at all, not at all.
You didn't think so. All right, good. I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. Well, maybe a little bit. But any event, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, Seth will have an internet connection by then. Stay safe, everybody. Help each other out. And we'll see you again soon. Have a good night, everybody.
My last and final thought, Lisa, you are what Unlock Potential is.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I
Thank you
enjoyed
for
it.
joining
It
us.
was great.
And before I go, Jenny asks, can we get meeting recording? I guess you mean of this past hour and a half. If you go to YouTube and type in Commissary Club, you can access all of the past episodes. I believe by tomorrow, this episode will be up there and you can get a link and share it or whatever you want to do with it. So
Oh, there it
thanks
is.
for that interest. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.
Peace and blessings,
See you next
everybody.
week. Bye, everyone.